So first day, kind of full pads, all that. How you feeling?
Good. I mean, I thought just kind of both sides of the ball have played with a lot of energy. So I just think when you get to, the sixth day, that's the main point of emphasis. Now all of a sudden the energy kind of comes from the opportunity to play some actual football, live football. So I thought it was good. I thought good on both sides of the ball. A lot of situational stuff that's come up, and I thought it's been good learning.
What are you liking from your group of guys so far? What are you seeing who's really kind of standing out in your eyes that's kind of taking that next step right now?
Yeah, I think that the main thing I would just say that has probably stood out is just there's been some guys that have made plays and really, kind of played to their strengths, which is exciting to see. The energy that they've played with day in and day out has been a positive, really from the receiver group. And, I think every day there's been a few guys that have shown up. Zach Card's made some big plays. I think he's improved a ton over the summer. Eddie Freehoff's made some plays, and he's a big, strong, physical kid that probably doesn't know how strong he is, and now all of a sudden he's starting to play big, and which has been encouraging, kind of seeing them gain some confidence. Malachi Durant's made some plays. Trent Walker, had a good day yesterday. So I mean, I think just from him, you just kind of you expect a good day from him, but it's been encouraging to see some guys make plays, some different guys make plays.
You guys didn't pursue a big receiver in the portal, only one freshman coming in. But speaks to kind of the confidence you guys have in this group, just being able to run it back like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the collection that was kind of built in the first place, is quality from a depth standpoint, from a talent standpoint. And then, when you talk about the portal and you talk about, just kind of the rule changes in college football with this 105 stuff, you got to make sure that, roster spots are limited, and you got to make sure, when you feel good about the guys you've got, you need to maybe address other positions. But that's really been the main point of emphasis with the group we've got is we just got to get the younger guys to really emerge and create more quality depth behind the guys that are proven.
Trent had a real breakout year last year. What does he do well that creates that kind of separation?
He has a really good feel for the game, and he's a very instinctual player. He's actually, a guy that, coming out of high school, he was recruited on both sides of the ball. And I think that, a lot of schools had him on their board as a safety because he's just an instinctual football player. When you got a guy that, when you put on the film and he's making plays on both sides of the ball as a high school player, typically those are the best football players. So I think that that's what he does really well. And he had a breakout year, but I also think that he'll be the first one to tell you there's meat left on the bone for him too. So I'm excited because I think that he's improved certain aspects of his game that it only enhances his really kind of exceptional feel for the game.
Can you elaborate on what that might be? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, a big one for us that we've kind of emphasized is just, if we can find an extra yard or two at the end of catches, that for every time that it's a bang play where you catch and get tackled, maybe you get more yards out of, maybe you can find 4 more yards on one where you got a little more space. So, we really emphasize the run after catch. We really emphasize, just as far as, winning at the line of scrimmage, how he can really enhance his game in that way. Because that's something where people are going to really try and disrupt timing with him more than anything. So he's got to be really good, with his hands and stuff like that at the line of scrimmage, and he's really improved there.
You've been around a number of very prolific passing offenses at a number of levels of college football. What are kind of the similarities you see kind of between this group and ones you've been around in the past?
I think the most important thing is, and we call it in the receiver room, winning at the ball. You can sit there and look at all these guys and do all these cute drills and stuff like that. It really comes down to the name of the game is making plays. And that's something that, it's like you can win 99% of the rep and still lose at the end, but you can also lose 99% of the rep and still win at the end. And so that's really, the best guys that I've been around, just they find a way to win, play in and play out. And that's something that I think that, we've got some guys that really, especially as they continue to gain confidence, can really do that, as far as, the name of the game is making plays.
You mentioned Eddie, just a kid from a very small, kind of Central Oregon town. What's it been like kind of seeing his development throughout the spring and into now?
Well, the number one thing that jumps out at me about Eddie is because he was hurt his senior year of high school too. and he didn't start playing football until pretty late. I think he was a freshman when he started playing in the first place. So his actual kind of cumulative football experience is relatively low, and so I think that just for him, it's just kind of he comes across new situations all the time. Everything's new to him, but then he learns from it and he grows from it and he cares. I think that that's one of the things that's been really cool is, I'll sit up in my office, I'll look out on a, random Tuesday afternoon and he's out there walking through stuff on the field. So it's been cool to see his growth just because he's committed to it, but it's also every day is like a new experience for him. And it's like, hey, I've never seen that happen before. I've never seen this happen before. So, seeing him kind of grow through that's been cool.
As a guy who's worked with a lot of receivers in your life, is there something fun about getting a kid that raw and just kind of being able to mold him into what you want him to be?
Yeah, like you almost, especially when you have a guy that's really that committed, you almost have to make sure that, you don't tell him anything that, because he'll take it literally, so you have to really make sure that you're very proactive and exact in your coaching because, he's going to take things literally. But yeah, it's fun because, you look at him, he looks like a, Big Ten SEC receiver, just kind of, he's physically impressive, and now it's just a matter of just kind of putting it all together for him. So it's been cool to see.
We saw Elijah today on one of the plays, wide open down the sideline. Quarterback wasn't able to get the ball to him, but that sort of speed, when you see that, what does that potentially mean to the offense? And as a freshman, what does he have to do to actually get on the field?
Yeah, I think there's a variety of things that keep freshmen from getting on the field, and usually it's volume of playbook is usually for most guys the first thing. Is there's kind of a physical side of it, there's a mental side of it. Physically, he's twitchy, he can run, he's quick, he's strong. He's a good he's good in the weight room. Like he's a good lifter. He's physically developed. The big thing for him will just be putting all things together and. And then just also being confident that he's going to make the play when he gets an opportunity to. That's when you're a young guy, you don't get a ton of opportunities, you don't get a ton of reps, so you got to make the reps count. And so I think that's one of the things that for some young guys, that's hard to build confidence when you don't get a ton, and then if you don't make it count, you don't really build that confidence.
Jimmy Valson obviously missed all of last year. It looks like he's kind of starting to ramp back up to a point. What does he do for you? What's it like getting a guy back and being able to try and get them back up to speed?
I'm excited because I haven't seen Jimmy do anything. I've just gone off the film really from some of the previous practices, and I know he played in the bowl game a couple years ago, and so I'm just excited because you just look at him. He's big, he can run, he catches the ball well. So I think that he just, when you talk about the quality depth in the room and trying to and enhance that. It probably from a competitive standpoint puts some guys on notice of like, man, like Jimmy's coming back, so I'm excited to add him back to the group. It's just a matter of, when he's fully ready to go.
And kind of how have you felt about Taz kind of coming along and what does he really add for you guys?
Yeah, Taz, he's a really good football player and can play a variety of positions. He's really smart. I think that's probably one of the things that I've been just really pleased with is just kind of his grasp of just football and concepts and understanding it. He really does think. He asks higher level questions. He thinks at a higher level. Just as far as he really wants to understand the why behind things. And so he's been fun to coach. Because I think that he wants to be a complete receiver.
We saw him get his bell rung pretty good and pop right back up. Was in on the next rep. What's that kind of toughness? Is that something you're looking for in the slot?
That's what I want to see that from him all the time. I want to see him pop up all the time, but but he is tough. So I think that it helps the group when guys get hit like that and they get up and they go play the next play. It just kind of creates a standard.
You've talked about the depth in the group that you like. Over the next couple of weeks, you got to make some decisions about who's actually going to get some playing time. Come regular season. What's the divide? What's the difference? What are you looking for between the guys that are going to get to play and the guys that aren't?
It really comes down to who can make plays, who can handle the stress of playing when coaches aren't out on the field. I think that's a big deciding factor for young guys is all of a sudden, when a coach isn't standing out there right behind you, helping you line up or adjusting your split or reminding you of things, all of a sudden you put me on the sideline and you put Coach Gunderson on the sideline and we're not there to make sure everything's right. Can you handle that? I think that's from a young guy standpoint. And ultimately it comes down to who makes the plays. And that's something where, I don't shy away from that, where, the standard is to make plays and the guys who are going to play. And, we talk about all the time, we've got a good tight end room as well. If we want to have more receivers on the field, like we kind of have to outplay that room too, from a competitive standpoint, because we got to justify taking good players off the field to put us on the field, and just like the tight ends should feel the same way. So, when you talk about making those decisions, it really comes down to making plays. Like that's ultimately the end all be all, is who's going to make plays, and especially be able to make plays under duress. Anybody can do it once.
Any surprises?
Question.
Any surprises? No, I would say I'm encouraged by the growth of the young guys, but wouldn't say there's any surprises. There's guys that I thought had really good summers, that have emerged, and so I'm just kind of excited to see just kind of some of the guys that are closing the gap as far as the depth in the room.